Hi, it's Jerry Roberts. Welcome back to another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Vaccine Year. Today, we're continuing our series of conversations with members of the Santa Barbara City Council, and we're delighted to welcome Alejandra Gutierrez. Councilwoman, how are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Jerry. I'm doing great. Thank
Yeah,
you for having me in the show.
You had a pretty good day yesterday. A couple weeks ago on our panel show, I mentioned that I thought the whole dispute over Ortega Park and the murals and all of the different factions was, exactly the kind of issue that district elections was kind of made for. And you sort of pulled victory from the jaws of defeat on that yesterday. So where are we exactly on the grant for the park versus saving the murals, and those two things in conflict, and where do we go next?
So I just want to make it clear, the community never wanted the park not to get renovated or for the city to stop their process. So right now, Ms. Zachary from Parks and Rec came yesterday to City Council and basically submitted a resolution. What she's going to submit the grant.
Oh, good.
But in the presentation, once the grant is submitted, I asked her for a copy of what she's going to submit so I can have it. And she's going to work with a group of community members. In the meantime, this grant gets approved because we don't know if we're going to get it or not. There's a high possibility we will. So she's going to work with the community to figure out a way to preserve the murals. And at the same time, do more community outreach. The city does outreach, but they do it in a way where they don't really outreach to a larger population, and we need to fix that. And it's a topic that I've had over and over ever since I came onto council. We need to do better. Yes, we're doing outreach, but we're just checking a box. So they're going to move forward with the grant. They're going to start working with the community members. The community members also offered to help them do outreach. There was public comment. A lady said that she would actually go door to door if she had to do outreach. So the community wants to work with the city. Unfortunately, the city, now I'm part of it, and this is why I want to help. They have a way of conducting business where it's like, this is how we're going to do it. And then the community gets upset and they're like, no, we're not. And then they go back and fix it, where you need to start with the outreaching, the education, and really inform people on the steps of whatever changes you're trying to make in the city.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to recap for those who may not caught up with the story. So the city, I mean, Ortega Park's got a lot of problems. Drunk people and some families, I think, feel intimidated or afraid to go there or have their kids go there. So the city's got this $14 million plan to revamp the park, which is actually pretty cool. They're applying for an $8.5 million grant, but they never considered these 18 murals that are at the park, which anybody who's been there know are pretty cool. They represent the history of Aztec, Mexican, Chicano culture. And all of a sudden, folks from the community say, well, what about the murals? Oh, forget the murals. So you stepped into the middle of it. And, I thought there was a point recently where the city was going to go, fine, then we're not going to apply for the grant. Go take your murals. But that's not going to happen now. So we're going to be able to, as I understand it, both apply for the grant and have an expanded process to try to protect the murals.
But to be very honest, there was a point where everything just got put on hold. And there was a lot of assumptions. So I had a meeting with Paul Casey and the mayor and Ms. Zachary, and I said, where are we? I need to know exactly what the city's doing, what happened, and we're moving forward. You just have to work with the community. And they understand that not all of the murals are going to be saved, but you need to work with them to try to preserve some of these murals. And I told Ms. Zachary before leaving into, Christmas break, this is not news, but I hope, we've learned from this.
Yeah. Well, you sure got a lot of love from your colleagues yesterday. I mean, they were stepping all over each other. And I know you've had issues with Mr. Jordan in the past, but he was very effusive in his praise of you and the way that you navigated this situation. So kudos on that. What's the latest on the other park situation in your district, the Eastside Neighborhood Park, that which I guess is they're applying for a grant as well, or there's been money appropriated to fix that up, or what's going on there?
Yes, they applied for the CDBG funding, and Parks and Rec had funding to remodel the bathrooms, which that's going to be sort of the first step in the renovating of that park. The park had a lot of issues. What happened in Ortega Park, they removed the benches. So the issues in Ortega Park just moved into the Eastside Park. We have a preschool there, and we have 2 elementary schools. It's a middle of the neighborhood. There was we had issues with parking and people leaving trash there and people living in their vans. And I don't want to move the problem to another park, and there was also drug dealing going on. And, children see this every day and teachers were concerned. I worked there. So it was something that the city can't say, oh, we can wait. No, I know firsthand. And there's actually people that work for the city that work around that park. So I learned from what happened in Ortega Park, and I said, I need community input since the beginning. And I have. So, and yes, people will bring up, well, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We can't really do a lot of outreach. And what we're going to do is basically with social distancing next month, we're going to go out there in the park. I asked the heads of the departments that are involved in remaking this park to come out. They're going to have a table and they're going to answer questions and get input from the community. They've done a survey online, but that's only people that are, tech savvy. They've gone to the food distribution at the Franklin Neighborhood Center. Again, it's just a small little population, but if you go on a Saturday, mid-morning, you're going to get the community out there. So PD will be there, Parks and Rec will be there, and then somebody from streets. And that way the community gets their answers straight from the resources.
Yeah.
And there's actually a poster outside right in the park, so community members can come and look at how the park is, being designed and get their inputs.
Okay. All right. Good. Can you give us any update on the murders of the 2 teenagers right after, I think, January 3rd, January 4th? That's just kind of disappeared from the news. What are you hearing?
So it's an ongoing investigation, and I've been in communication with the PD. I understand how things work in the police department because I've worked with the police. I'm educated in that sense. But I've had conversations with members of the police department. I've said most community members don't understand. They're feeling, hey, sheriff came into the neighborhood, they took the bad guys, they solved the case. Where are you? They don't understand the process.
Well, yeah, they're contrasting it with the murders in, I don't know if it was Goleta or Nolita, that the sheriff had a jurisdiction over, solved really quickly. And, obviously you look at it and say, well, that was 2 white people and, these are just Latinos.
So there's a lot of, assumptions being made. And I brought it up. I said, I understand, but the community doesn't understand. And it is an ongoing investigation. So they're not saying much and they can't. But I did talk to a detective and I said, look, the community members, even people that are working for the school district that work closely with youth that got affected by this death, feel very frustrated, like the PD is not doing enough. And, he said to me, Alejandra, we're working very, very hard, but it's an ongoing case. I can't share any information. And I get it, but I just wanted them to know how the community was feeling. But what was really neat about that conversation is that 2 days, 3 days later, the detective came back and said, thank you for sharing the frustration the community has. and they actually met with the families. They didn't give them an update, but they met with them to explain why they've been quiet. And it's not because they don't care. And so that helped the family feel, a little bit better that the PD does care. They're working on it. But it's a really frustrating position even for the PD, but they're working on it, and it's hard to ask for patience. I understand.
But as the representative of those families, you personally feel that the department is doing everything they can to find the perpetrators and to pursue the investigation.
Believe me, Jerry, you think I'm going to forget when I went to go visit the mothers, and the devastation of losing a child. I'm not a mother, but I have a nephew that I love him like he was mine, and I live in that neighborhood 3 blocks away. And there was a murder before that, less than a year, 50 feet from where I live. No, PD knows that I'm very vocal.
Okay. All right. All right. Can you give us the update on the 7-Eleven North Milpas project? There's been a lot of controversy about that. Some housing, had to have a lot of design changes. They got a special development agreement with the city. Where does that stand?
So I'm really proud of going in front of council with Mr. Friedman to do this development agreement. Apparently, we hadn't had a development agreement in 20 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And I didn't know that because I'm new, but I'm really happy how the city and the developers are working together. On the development agreement, they actually only have to go one time to ABR, and then they can go to Planning Commission. So they recently went to ABR, and ABR made some suggestions for some changes. And they're actually going to go back again to ABR before they go to Planning Commission. So they want to get ABR's approval, meaning they want to work with the city. They don't want to cheat the system. And that makes me feel really, really good because, there's a lot of negative comments about these developers wanting to gentrify Milpas. So I have to make sure, that's not their intent, and it's not. So then they're going to go to Planning Commission, and then I believe they come back to ABR, and then they go to council.
So what are the issues at this point? Is it the number of units, or the number of affordable units, or the height, or the gewgaws on the outside? What's holding it up?
They're very minor changes. I know that one of them, ABR didn't really like how bulky it looked. So they made some suggestions where it's not going to look so bulky. That was like their big thing.
I don't like how bulky I look either. Maybe I should go before the
and the height. So they made some suggestions to make it look, less bulky, compact, a little bit more stretched out. But it went well. I listened to that hearing. I think it's going to be good.
All right. So you're confident that one's gonna
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Good. Well, speaking of gentrification, you and your colleagues recently voted to give, I think, 40 grand or something to the Coast Village Road businesses for a business development district for reaching out and starting that. Now there was a controversy about a business development business development district on Milpas in your district a couple of years ago. My recollection is the mayor torpedoed it because she wasn't the mayor. I don't know if she was or she wasn't. No, she wasn't then. Cathy Murillo was against it because she felt that the larger businesses were kind of running roughshod over the smaller Latino business owners. And you said in the Coast Village Road debate that you thought it was a good model that you would like to adapt to your district. So what are your thoughts on that going forward?
I mean, the pandemic really just brought up the issues we've always had in we haven't fixed them. And I saw how the small Latino businesses on Milpas not only got hit economically, but they weren't receiving the information like the other bigger business, or the businessmen that understand the language and they understand the system. And one of my goals is to revitalize Milpas, to make, I mean, and it's happening now, but I want to empower those local businesses, because Milpas it's old school Santa Barbara. Those business owners have been there for years. They've seen the families grow and children grow up and become adults, and it's home. It's where the heart is. And I definitely want to keep the authenticity of that street, but the businesses there need help. And when all the changes that were happening for COVID, and then the new, economic relief funds that were out there, the businesses didn't know. I helped Santos from El Bajío get his little, patio area out there. And I sent Rob Dayton over there. Rob doesn't understand Spanish very well. He can't communicate, but they communicated somehow. And, Santos got his little patio area. But it's because I have a relationship with Santos that I was able to say, hey, you can open the street up a little bit. And he's like, how do I do that? Well, let me send somebody from the city. But I think it's really important that street, the businesses get together. I think what happened last time, there was a lack of education. There was egos got involved. They forgot about the people, and the intent was great, but somewhere along the process, it became a war. And who got stuck with the consequences? It was the business people. So I do want to organize the businesses, but I have to actually, my interns and we're going to go, and they actually went last week, but they're getting all the information from the businesses. They're asking questions. So we see the needs, we understand the needs, and then we go in to meet with them. It's going to take a process, but I don't want to go in there and say, this is what we're going to do. I mean, it's like somebody coming to your house and saying, we're painting the house pink. Are you kidding me? So there has to be a lot of education. I really think that business owners on Milpas, they help each other. I helped Santos raise like $20,000 to put the lights on Milpas, and that man did it on his own. He really did. I helped him with getting volunteers to put the lights. With his, broken English, he went out there to all the businesses, and he's creating community. And I think it's time. I think it's time that Milpas starts to shine.
So the purpose of the business development, why can't I say this? Anyway, the district would be basically to sort of collaborate in cleaning up the street, whether it's trash pickup or trash receptacles or lights, or and as well as events, maybe around holidays, parades, or whatever like that. So you think that's a viable model going forward? Is there a business association on Milpas now that you would build on?
After the whole mess with the bid went on, it just, everybody, there was so much hurt that happened with people that were invested. They had really good intent, that everybody went their separate ways, and there was a lot of bad feelings, and business people really felt hurt and they felt betrayed.
So
But now we're in 2021 after a pandemic. We need to get it together. Milpas is key to Santa Barbara. I mean, we don't see it because a lot of the focus is downtown, but if we make a survey of how many people go eat tacos from out of the area to Milpas, it's going to be a lot. They go to Milpas and then they go to State.
Yeah. But you're starting from scratch on the project,
yes.
basically.
Okay. I'm hoping that we can start. I have to earn my stripes with the business people. So my first step is hopefully, I haven't run this by Paul Casey, but I want to use some of that Measure C funding to fix the sidewalks and look into the trees there, to get the community, motivated, and the business people to see that I'm serious. I want to create a positive change there. Sidewalks are a big issue there in Milpas.
Yeah, and it was Measure C money, just to be clear, that the council voted to direct toward Coast Village Road. So
Yeah.
this would not exactly be unprecedented to do that. Yeah. All right, I got to ask you this. So yesterday, another thing that happened at the council meeting in public comment, there were a number of speakers, I don't know, 8 or 12 or whatever, who mentioned a comment that the mayor made to me in an interview I did with her that was published on Sunday. And I asked her about being endorsed by her colleagues, being endorsed for re-election. And she said, Megan Harmon's endorsed her, Oscar Gutierrez has endorsed her. And she said, I'm working on Mike Jordan and Eric Friedman. And she says she hasn't broached it with you. And then she said, it's like if you're asking your wife for a favor, you kind of have to wait for the right moment and wait until she's in a good mood. And apparently a number of people took objection to that. What was your, I mean, first of all, what did you think when you read that or saw it? And second, what came out of yesterday?
I was offended. I felt very disrespectful, disrespected, because we don't tolerate that from a man. I mean, I don't think I wouldn't. I know all the women that I know and in my family would never tolerate that comment from a man. And to hear her say that, I felt very disrespected, because I've never disrespected her in public like that. And we've had our differences and we've had conversations. It was really surprising. What hurt me the most was that my younger cousins heard the interview, and my 8-year-old cousin said, "That is so rude." And I kind of smiled, but I was happy that he understood that that was not okay. And I know you haven't asked me this question, but will I endorse her? No.
Okay. Okay. All right. And then you looked like you were getting kind of weepy at one point there on the dais when people were kind of assailing her for it. And well, she did. We should say she did finally apologize to you yesterday. What was moving about that to you?
First of all, I wish that we could all learn from this. But what moved me, one, I was embarrassed because I don't like to be the center of attention, and just to hear that what she said, it just feels like I'm repeating it for the first time. But what really got me emotional was to see the response of the community. And that's when the community responds like that in defense of somebody that's leading the community, it reminds me I'm doing a good job. But one particular person, I recognized her voice, and I never thought in a million years she would call. That's why it was shocking and so emotional. Her name's Griselda Villapando, and she works at the church across the street from Franklin. She grew up here. They gave her the position of leading these learning pods there at the church. And I worked very closely with her, and there was moments where she felt very overwhelming, that she wasn't doing the best to deliver for the students, because the students really needed a lot of attention. And there was times where it was really frustrating. But I've helped her a lot. She's grown so much as a leader. And when I heard her call, I did cry, because I was like, wow, Griselda, look at you. She's owning her leadership, but not only that, she feels part of this community. And and that's exactly why I ran, because I wanted local people that felt part of their neighborhood, but didn't feel part of the larger community. Now they feel part of that larger community. They have a voice. She called, and Griselda is very shy. So it was very moving. Yes, it was something very negative, that somebody had to say, but hey, we got community members speaking up on council. That's great. That's what we're here for.
All right. Good enough. So last thing, wearing on your other hat, is the Franklin Center, is it reopened now? Or are people coming in post-vaccine, or what's the situation?
So we've reopened. I meet with community members by appointments because we still have to be social distancing. There's a lot of need in my community. So when they saw my door open, I was getting a lot of people and I was a little worried. I was like, okay, can you wait at the door and I'll help you here. But we're back, and it was a good first week of reopening the school there at Franklin. It was really amazing to see the parents really happy and the children, just people were happy to be back. Teachers, they're at the team there at Franklin, they're pretty amazing. It was a really good first week.
All right. Now, Adelante comes back, I think, on March 29th, and then you really got trouble on your hands, I can assure you, based on my personal knowledge. All right, Alejandra Gutierrez, thanks so much for taking the time and updating us on what's going on in District 1, and kudos on the on your good work on the Ortega Park controversy and the other things that you're working on. Thanks, and
Thank
stay
you.
safe.
Thank you. You too, Jerry.